Hey everyone, welcome back to CryptoCache. Thank you very much for joining me here. I hope you're having an amazing day. We're going to take a quick look at Loopring, and before we do, we look at Bitcoin as well, see what's going on there, because I think it's important to understand, big picture, where Bitcoin is at. Now, great news, we are making higher highs at this point. We finally just broke that lower high pattern, and there's a great chance we could see a lower low as well, or correction, sorry, a higher low, which would put us in a position to have a nice continuation, right? So we just need to see this one-day candlestick close above 48,000, have some kind of confidence there. But for right now, it's looking very, very good. We're up over the 200-day simple moving average, and of course, up over the 50 on the 4-hour. So both really, really good things. And I think that's causing a lot of this, a nice continuation for most coins here as well, getting some confidence from Bitcoin. That fear, uncertainty, and doubt is starting to subside a little bit, and that's giving coins like Loopring, for example, room to breathe, right? So we're going to take a quick look here, of course. Just know I'm not a financial advisor, right? I just love teaching people how to trade, and it's truly my passion, right? This is my full-time job. I do this every day, and I can tell you it's very rewarding. And, having traded for over 15 years, I've learned a thing or two here, so hopefully you can learn something as well if you're new to the channel. Thanks again for joining me here, and if you're not currently a member, please consider joining my patron community. We're actually going to transition over to a website platform next month, and what that'll do is I'll be able to roll out with my CryptoCache Trading Academy as well, which is a full in-depth analysis on how to be a better trader with tons of video, tons of content. So that'll be available here soon, but for right now, I want you to learn as much as you can, of course. All right, so check that out in your own time. Looking at the one-day chart, of course, with Loopring. Pretty straightforward. We're obviously under the 50-day simple moving average. Traditionally not a great sign, but the way the price action is moving here today, kind of breaking past that previous barrier, is a very, very good sign. So you can see here, of course, 1, 2, 3, 4, almost 5 days in a row, the price could not pass 77. Actually, no, sorry, correction. We'll just round up and say 79 cents. It is basically 78.6 cents, essentially providing us. Oh no, sorry. Rewind. $2.09, 209. All right, sorry, that was a Fibonacci retracement level of 0.786. So $2.09 is essentially the resistance level for Loopring, and now we broke through that. We blasted through it essentially, and it's likely this one-day candlestick will close above. It's a very, very good sign. So ultimately, not too concerned with the 50-day simple moving average kind of working as a potential resistance. We'll bridge that gap when we get there. We could very well see that happen the next 24 hours, however, and that would be close. It'll probably be really close to that resistance level at about $2.46 anyways. So we got a little bit of room to grow to get there, but ultimately that's looking to be very, very doable at this point, okay? Because again, we broke that previous resistance, which is a great sign. What's also nice too, if we look at the RSI, we're trying to break above right now, okay? Now, I say trying to, of course. Obviously, it hasn't done so yet, but I can tell you that once we get back up over 50 on the RSI, it's going to be a very good continuation pattern. In other words, it really helps us understand that we're more bullish than bearish. When you have an RSI between 50 and 70, it's not considered oversold or overbought. It's still fairly neutral, but it's on the right side of the track. And that's what we ultimately need to look for, right? We need confirmation knowing we're heading in the right direction. And right now, we're kind of getting that signal or that sign essentially on the one-day chart. Let's see what the 4-hour tells us. Awesome, awesome stuff. This is very good because you can see previously how the 50-day simple moving average was working as a resistance here previously. Now it's going to be considered a support level, and that support is essentially residing right at about 208, that previous resistance. So reaffirming that is a nice, strong support level moving forward. So all very good stuff there. I like what I see there from Loopring. Let's see if we got a MACD convergence, which we did, of course. When was that? That was yesterday afternoon. So yesterday afternoon, we got a MACD convergence. That was right here. Let's go ahead and mark that on the charts, and we're going to see where that correlates on the the 1 hour chart for the Ichimoku cloud. Before we get there, though, just a note, we can see the RSI. This is also very healthy. RSI is up over 50, right? But it didn't pass 70, so it's giving it a chance to breathe, chance to cool off. Because yes, this 4-hour candlestick here was very massive, but if the price can go sideways, maybe retrace just a small amount, that'd be perfectly fine. We actually want to see that so it doesn't go too crazy too fast. Because the harder something pushes, the harder it can get pushed back. And if we have a nice steady continuation, a nice healthy staircase pattern, like I like to teach that to my community members, it's important to have healthy patterns moving on, from these previous support and resistance levels. So all good stuff here. Ultimately, everything I see here right now is almost perfect regarding the 4-hour chart. So all good stuff. Let's go ahead and take a look at the 1 hour and see if this cloud lines up. Okay, it's fairly close. It's within about 4 to 6 hours, and that's pretty standard too. So when you see a MACD convergence on the 4-hour chart, right, it's kind of a signal to kind of take a long position because the 12-day exponential moving average, the 12-day EMAs, intersecting with the 26 in an upward fashion. What that does is basically telling us the bears are receding and the bulls are taking control. Okay, obviously we see that with a lot of coins right now, based on confidence from Bitcoin. But that being said, we had the MACD convergence that occurred yesterday at approximately 1 p.m. And now obviously here it is shooting up straight up. But what I want to get here to you and help you understand is the fact that the Ichimoku cloud is these lines here. Well, it kind of looks like a cloud, right? I guess, if you will, the little green and the red. When the price is above the cloud, right, that's considered a buy signal in most cases. So if you got the price above the cloud and a MACD convergence, you're essentially confirming that not only are you buying in the same direction that it's heading, but you get that confirmation on 2 different time frames. And ultimately, I feel like it's best to be able to get confirmation on all 3 timeframes if possible. Granted, we don't need to look at the 15 or the 1 minute unless we're day trading, but if you look at the 1 day and the 4 hour and the 1 hour chart, and you all get confirmation from the specific signals that are tried and true, the ones I've been using for years, they kind of speak loudly. In other words, right now, Loopring is telling us it's a perfect position to be taking, or just say it would have been a perfect position before it took off just now. Granted, it could be a bit on the overextended side right now, but we're still, again, on the right side of the tracks. See? So you got to understand that we broke and blasted above this previous resistance of 208, and now we're holding very strong. Therefore, it would be a decent consideration to either add to your position or consider opening a position at this point. But also just note that that is a lot of growth in a short amount of time. It might correct itself first, and we want to be aware of that. That being said, though, just to rewind a little bit further here, we got the price above the cloud, we've got the conversion line is well above the baseline, and the lagging span is free and clear of any price action. So we literally have at least about 24 hours more of continuation that we should expect to see, either to the side or to the upside. Okay. The likelihood of it coming down is still there. So I need you to understand that. It doesn't mean it's not going to come back down, because if we do take a look at some other key indicators, we'll be able to see that there's a good chance we're probably getting close to overtime. In fact, we are in overtime. All right. And what that just means is if you're unfamiliar with TD sequential, first of all, get familiar with it. It's a really cool indicator. And what it does, it tells you market exhaustion. It kind of helps you understand that. And so it's basically taking the 4th previous candlestick and continuing to count upwards to a 9. Once you get to a 9, as we see here, then you're supposed to get a reset. The price is supposed to come back down or consolidate at a usual resistance or support. We had that consolidation period, right? You can see these about 3 hours of continuation to the side, nice healthy, relaxation, so to speak, at support. And then the 1 hour chart just took straight off, right? We got a nice strong from bottom to top, a nice 12% pump roughly. So that's really, really awesome to see, of course, but keep in mind, it didn't have enough time, according to TD sequential, to reset, if you will, right? And what that basically just means is where it's at right now isn't a bad thing. It just means that it also could be considered to be as overbought, and it might come down a little, right? So just bear that in mind. Now, keep this in mind also, we looked at the 4 hour chart and we look at the RSI in the 4 hour, and you can see that's not really considered to be overbought. It hasn't passed 70 yet. So all in all, if it just consolidates and kind of hangs out for a couple more hours, it could very well leg up again, okay? But also bear this in mind too, it's been increasing for almost 24 hours straight. And you got to be real with yourself. Is it likely going to just continue to the upside when it's already done a pretty decent amount of growth? Because think about this, 24 hours ago, the price was 20% lower, okay? So to me, while this is fairly healthy continuation, this up here is not super healthy, right? So I would normally, I guess, again, just generally speaking out loud, how I would approach it. I usually like to wait for something like this to calm down a little bit before I take entry. But once again, if your big picture is Loopring and you love Loopring, go for it. It's a great coin. It's going to go places, right? So does it really matter if you get in at 218 or 225? It really wouldn't if you are going to be holding this for a longer period. But if you're day trading, for example, it's a bit on the overextended side. It might come down some, might even come down to test 208 and then bounce and come back up. There's a likelihood of that, right? So I just need to make sure that you're aware of that being a potential and that could effectively happen. But big picture, I do think Loopring has tremendous amount of potential. It's proven time and time again to recover quite nicely. But you got to understand too that you see how it recovers in its history. It has a tendency of selling off very hard as well, okay? So just all in all, I'm bullish on Loopring. I do think it's going to do well. I would just recommend, depending on what your trading style is, if you're day trading, maybe consider waiting. If you're swing trading or hodl trading, whatever the case is, more long term, then now is just as good a time as any, right? The likelihood of it retracing all the way back down to below 208 is very, very low. So we can consider 208 the floor or the bottom for now. Okay, that's kind of what I'd like to mention. Also, one thing to note too, and I see this right here really quick. Loopring has a tendency of bouncing back pretty hard, right? So you can see how it came down it counted it from a 1 to a 9. Okay, so that's the normal reset you get from the actual TD sequential. So the price is supposed to recover from there, right? Look at what it did. It recovered nicely, came up to a 2, and then it came back down all the way to a 9. And now we're at a 1 again. So hypothetically, we have at least 3 more days of continuation before it decides it wants to retrace again. And just say Bitcoin, for example, decides to pull its head out of its ass, and it's doing very, very well for the next 5, 10, 20 days. Because keep this in mind, since November 10th, we've had nothing but red candlesticks from Bitcoin. It has failed to make higher highs and higher lows for over 5 weeks. Okay, and look what Loopring has done in the meantime. This is basically November 10th here. This is the same exact time frame that Bitcoin started to sell off. It's done very, very well, all things considered, right? So again, keep that in mind. It's not independent of Bitcoin by any means, but it does have a tendency of flaring up quite quickly. And now that we got this nice healthy reset and a good consolidation right at about 208, there's no reason not to want to consider taking entry as close to 208 as possible, of course, but even still at 228, I still think it's a good value. Because the likelihood of it increasing to its previous all-time high is pretty high in my opinion. So that could be about a 70% increase from where it's at presently. So yeah, I guess to answer your question, I am bullish on Loopring, and I do think it's going to go places. Just be mindful, we're early in the stage here of the price continuing up, but also understand as well, it might very well come down a little bit further before it continues to the upside, based on the fact that it's a bit on the overextended side on the shorter time frame. So the micro is overextended, but the macro is not. Hopefully that helps. So please feel free to comment below if you have any questions. Consider joining my community, of course, my trading academy. That's going to be rolled out again next month, and it's going to be awesome. So looking forward to getting to know you all better. Hope you have a great rest of your day. Thanks again for your time. We'll see you soon.